Congrats on making it halfway through Unit 3. Remember, by the end of this unit, you will have all the tools you need to go play thousands of songs. By now, you know 7 of the primary open chords. However, you aren't likely to play all of those chords in the same song. There are certain groups of chords that always go together. That's because they're in the same key. You may have heard, this song is in the key of C, or that song is in the key of B. Musical keys are like little families that all of the notes organize into. And I'm going to show you how you can figure them out. That means it's time for another excursion into the world of music theory, which means I need my piano. So, as I said, musical keys are groups of notes that work together. Every key has a root note, which gives you the key's name and starting point. We'll start with the key of C because it's the easiest on the piano. The key of C is the only major key that uses only the white notes. A key's scale is the series of notes that make up the key. Now, this can get confusing because I'm talking about musical keys as groups of notes that go together, but these things that you press down on a piano are also called keys. So to avoid confusion, I'm going to refer to the note groups as scales moving forward. Key of C major scale, same thing. So if I'm playing a C scale, I would start here on a C and play all of the white notes. And that's a C major scale, the notes that make up the key of C. You can also refer to the root note as 1 and count up each scale degree from there. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and back to 1. You notice I didn't play any of the black keys. That's because they are not in the C major scale. When you combine the white and black keys, there are 12 different notes, A through G, with all of the sharps and flats. That means that there are 12 possible root notes, and therefore 12 different major scales. However, a major scale only has 7 notes. That's why each of the 12 major scales is unique. Each one contains a different sequence of notes while leaving others out. Now I'm going to show you the pattern that you can use to determine what notes are in any given major scale. The interval between neighboring notes is called a half step or semitone. They mean the same thing. For example, A to A sharp is a half step. A sharp to B is a half step. And without a black key here, B to C is also a half step. When you skip a note, it's called a whole step. Another way to think about this would be that a whole step is made up of 2 half steps. So A to B is a whole step because we skipped A sharp. C to D is a whole step because we skipped C sharp. And B to C sharp is a whole step because we skipped C. When you start on a root note, you can follow a pattern to figure out what notes are in that major scale. The pattern is whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. We like to remember it with this rhythm. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half.
And the Grammy goes to...
Let me demonstrate this using C as our example again. Starting on C, I go a whole step, then a whole step, then a half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, and lastly, a half step. So if we start on C, we go whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. It's really easy to see in the key of C because there is no note to play in those half-step spots, but that's not always the case. So what if I want to figure out the key of F? Well, you can follow the same pattern. So right here, we've got F, a whole step takes us up to G, another whole step takes us to A, but now we have a half step. A half step up from A is B flat. I know I told you that anytime you're going up, a note is sharp, but in the key of F, this will always be a B flat instead of an A sharp. The reason is because in every major scale, you always will have every letter from A to G represented. And because A is in the key of F, we can't have an A and an A sharp. B is not in the key of F, so we have an A and a B flat. And then we jump from B flat up to C, a whole step. Another whole step takes us to D, whole step to E, and we land back with a half step on F. Let's do one more example starting on D. So we start here on D, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. A whole step will take us up to E, a whole step takes us up to F sharp, and a half step we go down to G, whole step, whole step, whole step, and a half step. Now, don't worry. I haven't forgotten that this is a guitar lesson. It might be feeling more like a piano lesson or a music theory class at this point, but I promise this is all foundational to your musical journey. That said, let's get the keyboard out of here and come back down to earth. You can apply the same pattern to the neck of your guitar. If you want to find the key of E, just start on your low E string and play whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And there you go. If you want to find the key of E, just start on your open E string here and play whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Starting on E, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And there you go. Start on any fret, follow that pattern, and you'll be able to find a major scale. You may be wondering, how are we going to use this knowledge to help our playing? Well, every musical key contains certain notes. That's true for the piano, and it's true for the neck of the guitar. Because chords are made up of individual notes, that means that every key also contains specific chords and not others. And that last point, that every musical key contains specific chords and not others, was the whole point of this video.
3 days later.
I know that was a lot of info, but now you understand. Of the chords we've learned so far, some work together and others don't, depending on the key you play in. The good news? You already know most of the chords for 2 of the most common keys you'll ever need to play. And we'll get into that in the next lesson. Thanks for watching.